What's going on, guys? The Braces here. Today we have a very special guest. We have Paul from ETC Team Germany. He was playing Warriors of the Dark Gods. He scored really well. I know that he had a very difficult role in the team. With his double Demon Prince list, he managed to play against Divination 4 times, as I've heard. Am I correct?
Yes. Altogether. The matchups weren't that nice, but I still managed to get some points.
Yeah, you got a very impressive result. So as you could have guessed, since he was playing Warriors of the Dark Gods, we will have a Warriors of the Dark Gods review with him today. And what I would like to start is I would like to start talking about the relative power of the army. Because I've heard that the 9th Age team decided that this was one of 2 weakest armies, and looking at the amount of changes, it actually looks to be the weakest army for them. Do you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think it's like a mid-tier army. The design of the book, since the 2.0 update, is really bad, but the power level, I think, was pretty alright. I don't think that it's one of the worst books, no.
Yeah, I would say that they are using a lot of data that doesn't really reflect the real power of the army, right? For the ETC itself, I wouldn't say that the ETC is determinant for what is the weakest army, but as the results shows, I think Warriors were like top 3 scoring army. I don't know if you've checked that.
No, I didn't, but I think Warriors is one of the books which can do pretty well if paired in the right matchups.
But if we look at your example, you were playing Warriors and you were not paired into good matchups and you still scored really well.
Yes, that's right, but I think it's mostly because of the roster and the whole Helmer thing. I think we will talk about it later. I think it's not based on the book itself.
But in general, I would also not say that the Warriors are close to being the weakest army, so this a bit surprised me. But I guess all the Warrior players will take that, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, everything got cheaper. I think we will come to that. And
so for the Warriors changes, as you could have seen in previous videos, I tried to fit all the changes on one slide. But there were so many changes in the Warriors book that I guess we'll just talk about the most important ones. Obviously, we'll not talk about all the most important changes, but only about few of them. Since we have Paul here, I will try to talk to him about things that he found in his list and to see how they changed. Because we had the major redesigns for few things, and the first thing I would like to talk about is Helmo. So how do you find the new Helmo?
I think the best change is that a sorcerer can go through the Helmo. And that was a pretty big problem for my ETC roster. That's why I decided for 2 heralds back then. Because with the sorcerer I wouldn't have been able to walk through the gateways. Now we can do this when he's in a unit of knights or warriors or whatever.
And you can also teleport things like barbarians now, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you obviously get a lot of toxic hits with a big unit of barbarians, but still you can do it. So it's just a nice gimmick that you are able to do it, mostly for maybe scoring reasons. In the last turns, it really doesn't make any difference.
And what do you think about the change about the toxic hits in 6 inches instead of 2d6 inches with strength 4?
I think that you have the safe 6 inch is much better now. It's more aligned, but I really have to say I never used this that much, the damaging while closing the gates. I mean, It was so little effect most of the time. Yes, sometimes you could maybe threaten some single units or a single character at the end of the game, but really in all my games it never made a big difference. I think only once I killed an important redirector from Vampire counts with it, and I don't know.
Okay, I would say that on the 6-inch part I think it's a bit worse, because for the 2d6 inch your opponent couldn't really stay safe, and with 6 inch it's much easier to stay safe from this, right? But I think that toxic hit can be a very important thing here. So if you're playing, for example, against Kingdom of Aquitaine, you can always just place the markers in front of his army, and if he decides to move forward to get you, then he d6 on each lance, so likely you will get 2 lances with this, and this can be huge, right? You also play Kingdom of Aquitaine, so you know how bad can it be, right?
I think the most important part for the Kingdom of Aquitaine matchup with the Helmer is that they aren't allowed to move, right? Because this is the most crucial part when playing Kingdom of Aquitaine. If something gets in the flank of your army,
then you're dead.
Yeah, you're just dead. So that's why kind of the hammer matchup is pretty good against them, because they aren't just allowed to move. They can't do anything. They just have to stay in their corner and guard the gateways.
Okay, so it basically improves a matchup that was already good, right? Okay, and we had also some interesting Exalted Herald changes. What do you think about them? There was a huge shift in manifestations.
Yeah, that's right. I would first go over the things which changed, I think, in a good way. Problem was with only one herald, you had not many spells, only 3 if you went for the sorcerer build. Now you can have 4 spells, and 4 pretty good ones, I would say, if you would like go for only one sorcerer herald prince. Both occultism spells, which are pretty nice with Wavewalker. The synergy with Wavewalker and both of these spells are just ridiculously good. Together with the Wrath of God. Wrath of God with Reroll to Wound is a safe kill for War Machines if it hits them.
Yeah, definitely.
The other one, no BSB, no General from Traumaturgy, right? And this is also a good spell.
I wouldn't say this is a good spell. Like I played Thaumaturgy for the last season basically, and I would say that that this spell is trash. I practically never picked it because this is just a gimmick. So I would say that it is really disappointing. Against half the armies, it's completely useless. So things like dwarves, infernal dwarves, and such. And then against the other half, you are leaving the guy at best at something like leadership 6 with BSB, which is not really reliable, right? So it's really hard to depend on that.
But you have many things which was fear in Warriors book. Go then for no BSB, and then maybe they have like test on 7, 8, something like that. I think it's okay.
Okay,
it's not a spell you want to let through, right?
That's a good addition, I guess. But nothing nothing I would rely on. Do you think double Herald is still viable here?
No, I wouldn't go for double Herald again, because the fighty part got pretty nerfed, and that's kind of the bad thing. I mean, the sacrification nerf, I don't know if it was that much needed, but whatever. If you play against Binding Scroll, then you can't rely on that, so...
How many times did you play against Binding Scroll on the ETC?
Oh, it was pretty often, which was another annoying part too, but... I mean, still, he still had to keep his Binding Scroll to counter the sacrification thing. I don't like these 2 spells that Close Combat Herald has now. -1 toughness, this is okay, but you still have Reroll to Wound or -1 toughness from Evocation if you want to go for some of these spells. And the other thing is, I think, the weapon skill. This is okay to have defensive 9 against all the offensive 5 elite infantry, but I don't know. I think the CC Herald is got nerfed pretty hard. And
so would you say that balance between manifestations is better or worse now?
I think in previous version you still had to pick, right, what you want to go. If you want to go full close combat and you only had 2 spells, you really had to go for another sorcerer then.
Yeah.
Now I think you pretty much always go for the sorcerer build, because you also get leadership 9 on top, which is pretty big. Another big thing you we have to mention is the divination attribute which the herald gives. A lord with pride, BSB, and together with a herald, it's kind of like he's stubborn.
No longer afraid of zombies and skeletons, right? Okay, so let's go to the Chosen Lord, because for quite a while we haven't seen him much being used, and the question is, will he be used now? Pretty much every option he had got cheaper. The mount version is still, I think, better than the on-foot version, but...
Yeah, that's right. I think there was one time where the foot version got yourself this buff with the second attack from second rank, right? This was fine, I think, but now I just don't see why you should go for on-foot build. Maybe with flying, but still all the other builds from Chosen Lord on Chariot, because he now has +2 armor.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part, I think.
Yeah.
The Death Stars of Chariots being teleported through Helmos sound pretty interesting, and it was one of my first ideas for this update, actually.
Yeah, that's right. And but still, I mean, you can go for pretty cheap builds. Then he's around 650 points. Or you could still go for an all-out build where you have like all the amazing stuff for 800 points. It just depends on what you like for your character setup.
Yeah, if you know, you know that I would rather go for the very cheap setup at 600, 650. I would rather have more chosen nodes than the more expensive ones.
Yeah, but Thomas just so one of our players, Scrub, I think maybe some of you know him, posted a build for me was like toughness 6 and blessed inscriptions and 1 plus 4 plus and these two, right?
Yeah, but this build, I remember this build. There was DOOMLORD, right, with 1-up rerollable, I think, and with toughness 6 because he was sloth. It was quite interesting for quite some time, but since it was so expensive, let's see if this one gets resurrected, because this was, I think, very interesting build. But still, I would guess Pride is the way to go. The toughness 6 1-up rerollable doesn't help you if you get -4 combat resolution, right?
That's right. I think the Pride is one of the best marks you could buy for characters, and especially that it goes on the unit too, right? So if you're just standing in warriors which don't have a mark or something like that, you still can test with the whole unit because the guy is inside it with 3d6.
Oh, nice. And what do you think about the Burning Potent for him?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky. I mean, the meta right now kind of cries for just take the Burning Potent, but I'm still afraid of all these frame ward saves. I have a pretty nice manifestation with this, the +1 strength, +1 attack for the one important round. I think this is pretty
yeah,
nice.
the Idol of Spite. I think it's auto pick. If you pick Burning Potent, you pick Idol of Spite, and most likely you pick Wrath, just because you want to make sure you will hit, and this +1 to hit is really important there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And the extra initiative, yeah, it doesn't hurt.
He kind of gets pretty glass cannish, but
you can get 1-up rerollable with this.
Yeah, sure.
So this is nowhere near glass cannon for me. I remember when at ETC 17 we were playing the Flying guy with Burning Potent.
Yeah.
He was only 3-up armor save, and he was fine.
He gets his points even in the last round, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's finish with the single units now, and let's move to some interesting combinations. So first of all, since you are no longer taking double heralds, you have to probably pick another mage. And even if you don't want to take Herald, I think that this combination is very interesting now. With the changes to Ledger of Souls and with the changes to Occultism, this sounds really interesting. Since Ledger of Souls now can also gather tokens from the unit you are standing in, so you can actually gather tokens from Barbarians, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is pretty big, but still, I think there's some downside with it too. So you have to buy your the Ledger mostly on the Sorcerer, right? So he doesn't have that much point for defensive items, you would say. So you say your Sorcerer stands behind in like 20 Barbarians with spells which have like 12 or 18 or 24 inch range. Well, I mean, it's obviously good, sure, but it also has some downsides. It's not an auto pick, because you could also think about maybe playing the Ledger of Souls on this War Shrine. I think this is just, in general, just too expensive, because the Shrine just is still shit. And then you have the thing that you don't have to care about your mage, right? So you can maybe then go for mobile mage single on Skywheel or whatever, and collect the tokens with the War Shrine.
But I think War Shrine is also interesting because it helps with the combat resolution. If you pick if you pick the Legion banner in the War Shrine unit, you have like what, 6 combat resolution base. This is pretty good.
Maybe 7, right? If you go for double Legion banner.
But then if you pick the mage with being the general, then you can also pick some interesting defensive equipment for him, right? You can probably fit I don't know, probably not a one up armor save, but you can probably go to something like a 2-up.
I mostly go for kind of Destiny's Call, because I mean, with the Occultism buff, I think we will see a lot of other people going for Occultism, and I think you really have to go for the 4+ board save on your important model then.
Yeah, Occultism buff seems also really good, especially like compared to removing 4 models and removing 1 model now. That's huge. Yeah,
that's right. But still, you just have to think about that you can, I think, only generate like 6 Veil tokens, right? You need all these tokens for the Veil Walker.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the unit that actually got pretty popular, and I've seen a lot of discussion about it on forums, and people are talking about the big Warriors unit with Zealots banner. How do you like this idea?
I mean, I thought about kind of like 30 or whatever big unit of warriors with great weapons before this banner got introduced too, and I think it makes them obviously much better. If you combine it together with kind of an Helmor, for example, then you compensate their lack of movement with the banner. I think it's interesting.
I would say that this is really expensive. With 30 guys with great weapons, this is going to be over core, right?
It's your whole core basically. But you could also go with like 20 greed warriors with this banner. It's like 700 points. It's still expensive, sure. I think it's interesting and it has great value. But you could also go for maybe a small unit of wrath warriors with great weapons in this banner, like 12 or 14.
But then it costs a lot, right?
Right, I mean, sure, it's not chosen wrath, so it's not initiative 6, it's just 5. I think the banner and the whole thing is a nice idea. I liked it more when you had a baseline. I mean, sure, it comes with more costs, but think about the knights, for example. I played when it was baseline for the knights too. I played 2 times 10 knights, but now you have the problem that you don't have Strider banner anymore, and I think it's pretty important for the knights to have something like a Strider banner or Wasteland Torch, because they are so expensive for only 1 wound, and you can't afford that you lose something in ruins or in forest.
It can be really helpful, but if you are picking only one unit of knights, then you can send them on the flank that doesn't really have those obstacles, right? If you pick 2 units of knights, then it can be a problem, right? Because one of them will have to pass some DTs. Yeah, but if you pick only 1 unit, then I would say that they can be really interesting. They are just under 700 points for 10 guys with lances and zealots banner, and with advanced 8. They actually charge much further than the warriors, right? And they don't need an assistance from the Hell Cannon to be useful.
That's right, and this is 21 attack strings, 6. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess so. And with pretty high weapon skill as well. So let's move to the last part. We have a major redesign of FORSWORN. So the FORSWORN got a major redesign. What do you think about the redesign?
I don't know. It doesn't make them better, right? The redesign. I don't think they pick them more because they now have 3 wounds but lost toughness and 1 attack. They kind of still have the same role. You buy DOOMLORD, then they have a pretty nice anvil, and I really don't get this useless rule. So if you're unlucky, then you kind of have a payoff from it, but you can never kind of play around that. You want to use this rule?
I think the rule is a gimmick, and the major part still the DOOMLORD was the one doing work, and I think the unit itself can be interesting in that sense that you can both use them with or without the DOOMLORD. So if you even bring the DOOMLORD in the list, then you can still go with the DOOMLORD as a cowboy, especially with the build I'm going to present soon. But I would say that the FORSWORN with great weapon, they are pretty cheap. They are like 400 points for 6 guys with great weapons. They seem to be a good scoring addition. So if you have problems with scoring in your list, then maybe picking them is not a bad idea, right?
Yeah, that's right. I still thought about maybe the ones with spike shit. I mean, they get pretty expensive, but if you pair them against the right things, for example, like strength 4 infantry with many attacks, I think it's nice too. If you're maybe
but their attacks back are only at strength 4, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's not crazy.
It's not. But with evocation you have good reroll to wound or -1 toughness, so I think wounding is not that big of a problem.
Okay, that sounds so evocation is a go-to choice, you would say. I know a lot of people complained at the forums that the -1 toughness spell is actually worse for the warriors than the -2 weapon skill, but I don't think I would agree with that. I would say that the -1 toughness combos really well with the rerolls to wound, as you mentioned already a few times in the video, right? Because they have practically the same role.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, sure, -1 is the most important thing for the warriors is to get their hits off, because they mostly have a high base strength. I mean, you have still the -1 leadership. Why not?
If this was only -1 toughness, not -1 toughness and -1 leadership, yeah, this would definitely be worse. But with both of them in, I think this is a very good spell. Okay, so let's go to 2 random lists. I got something more fun prepared, I would say, because I want to test the shit I mentioned. So you have the DOOMLORD with the FORSWORN. You have the Sorcerer with Barbarians and Ledger of Souls and such, and Marauding Giant just for some support. Like I think the Alchemy spell here works pretty nicely. Maybe not with the Chosen, but with the rest of the list, it looks good. The Doomlord build is a bit of the gimmick, so I don't know. What do you think about the Doomlord build?
I think if you spend like 100 points more, you get a better cowboy, the Chosen Lord. But I mean, you mentioned that you want to have the possibility to build together with FORSWORN and the Doomlord a pretty good unit, and it's and I think it's okay that you kind of like go straight there. You still it's cheaper for 100 points the Doomlord, and against the right things, he can be as effective as the Chosen Lord. So I think it's a nice idea. I mean, you can just try it out. You mentioned it in many of your videos. Just kind of like go for the things that no one's playing, or most of the time it isn't that bad, right? Because only no one is playing it. It doesn't mean it has to be.
Yeah, I know that I'm recently trying a vampire list that, like, when you compare it to the ETC versions, it is like 20 points cheaper. Nothing much really changed, and the list is so good, and nobody even tried anything around it. It's based on the huge investment in Magic, and nobody really tried it, and I'm really surprised. And we have also a list for your edition.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of the next level of my last year's ETC list. I went down from Double Herald to Chosen Lord and Sorcerer because, as I mentioned, you need another Sorcerer for the Herald. The idea behind the list is that you can kind of play against everything because of the Helmor. I went down to one additional marker too. I had two, I think, but as this increased in cost, and I think you kind of only need one marker. The list isn't about rushing the opponent, it's about playing the scenario game. And the Exalted Herald with the Wrath of God and the both spells is pretty good there to get some points.
Yeah,
you still have some fighting power with the Adept and the 10 Chosen Knights. Chosen Lord BSB is a nice guy. I tried to get him as cheap as possible so I can squeeze in the 10th Chosen Knight. You could say he's pretty in danger because of cannons or stuff like that, but he has so many things to hide behind it, right?
The Helmo is the best mobile obelisk you can get for those points.
Yeah. And that's true. So he can go kind of in the warriors, and in the warriors, Chosen Lord is a beast.
Adds a lot to the unit, I think.
I took the Fallen because I noticed in my games that you need some more kind of fighting units. I just have 3 fighting units, so these can for example, in Vampire Counts matchup, 6 Fallen are like a really good close combat unit if you have to fight against like zombies or skeletons.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And you have so many things which have like these pretty cheap spearmen inside it, and they're pretty good against that. And you can take the gateway markers for the redirectors. I mean, now the dogs can do this too, but they get many toxic hits, so you don't want to rely on that.
But what really surprised me is the lack of dogs in the list, but I would guess that you don't want to bleed any points here, because basically none of your units are really susceptible to something like magic missiles and such. Like Fallen a bit, but it's still 6 wounds with a 4-up armor save.
And they are so much more mobile than dogs. I mean, sure, you can say, well, but the dogs can like move 22 inch, but yeah, only in one direction. Sure, you can wheel and stuff like that, but they are so clunky if you like play them too wide and 4 deep, or like in any other formation. They aren't just as mobile as the Fallens. And
I think I still prefer to stick with at least 1 unit of dogs, just to have one long gas redirector, just in case I need it, because Fallen, while they are very mobile in every direction, on the other hand, they will struggle to get a long redirection.
And also, you can kind of go for some ballsy move, like just placing the Exalted Herald in front of someone, so that maybe only 1 or 2 guys can strike on him, stuff like that. And then you kind of put down the counter charges, and the Chosen Lord can do stuff like this too. I really like to do some such things.
Yeah, I would say that this is very interesting. So in general, what will you say about the Warriors book?
I think it got better, sure. I mean, the design is still meh, but okay, it's Warriors of the Dark Gods, so it's like only a pretty one-dimensional book. It's okay. I think the Helmor has really great impact on the gameplay. You can do so much things with it. so many tricks and stuff like this. You can always explore something more with it. So I would recommend everyone to at least try it for some games.
I would say that the Helmo should be a part of most competitive lists, just because of the mindfuck you can give your opponent, right? It's only 330 points, and your opponent has to still pay attention to it and take care of it. And on the other hand, this is a mobile obelisk, as we already said. So you can hide like the Herald behind it, every character behind it, things like chosen chariots behind it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, but all the changes go kind of in the right direction, right? To give the book some more flexibility. For example, the Flayers got short vanguard movement back. The dogs have this more flexible rule now too. I think these are all things in the right direction. Everything got pretty much cheaper.
I would say that for the standpoint of the warriors, it is a very, very good step. And I think that they paid really a lot of attention. I wouldn't say that I agree with all the changes made in the book, because I would say that some design changes are really clunky, and I would say that not all point changes are good, but at least they paid attention to the book. And it really concerns me that practically no other book got this treatment, because they could have done exactly the same for practically every book. As I've said in my reviews for Infinite Wars, for Dread Elves, you could easily have at least half of the amount of changes for the warriors in other books, and they would still be fine, and they would be better internally balanced. But as we can see, they only focused on this book, apparently. Because if you look at the price log of warriors is basically the length of the price log for every other book combined, which is pretty sad.
Many mistakes with the warrior book in the last since the 2.0 release. So it's okay. So it's the first kind of book they wanted to release with the new rules, and I kind of see why they do it, right? So every other book should get
yeah, I can also see why they do this, but the motivation that this is the weakest book, so we have to pay more attention to it, is
that's right.
A bit weird. And on the other hand, I'm not proposing for them to not pay that much attention to warriors, because I think it's great that they paid so much attention to warriors, but they could maybe pay more attention to other books as well, and do the same as they did with warriors with the other books, and then everyone will be much happier, I guess.
Yeah, probably. But still, they have to rely on the work. I think that the army book kind of like guys do, right? I mean, I think there are still people who care about the army book itself, and then they go to the rules team. I don't know exactly how their workflow is right now.
Okay, so thank you for coming, and hope you enjoyed it, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.
Yes,
Cheers.
Yeah.